agroecology and agrobiodiversity. Our topic today is the changing landscape of GMOs in Kenya, and should be concerned. And our speaker is from the Biosafety and Biodiversity and Biosafety Association of Kenya. That's BIBA Kenya, commonly or previously known as KBIOC, and she's the national coordinator. We'll introduce her further later. So this dialogue is ideally hosted by ISFA, that is the Intersectoral Forum on Agroecology and Agrobiodiversity. And ISFA is working towards mainstreaming agroecology and agrobiodiversity services in the agriculture and landscape sectors. The forum aims at providing a platform through which stakeholders can network, share knowledge and information, influence policy, fundraise, implement joint programs, and monitor and review progress of their actions. I'm Rosina Mbenya, country coordinator of PELAM Kenya. PELAM Kenya is a member of the ISFA steering committee, and also we are leading one of the technical working groups of ISFA, that is the Biosafety, GMOs, and Seed Sovereignty, TWG. I welcome you all to participate in this dialogue. Please note that we are going to be recording this dialogue, and we shall share the clip on our YouTube and also other platforms with all the participants as well. And we encourage all of us to tweet. We have a hashtag, that is agroecology and agrobiodiversity dialogues. I'll post it on the chat so that you can tweet. The floor will be open for contribution in line with the topic. And we request you that you keep your questions and comments in the chat box. I also request if we can also introduce ourselves through the chat box. You can write in the chat your names, your organization, and any other thing that you'd like us to know about you. So feel free and welcome. So at this juncture, I would like to welcome Bob if he's ready to share with us an icebreaker. Bob, are you ready?
Yes, thank you, Rosina. So we've just shared a link on the chat. What are your thoughts on GMOs? So kindly click on the link on the chat. I'll also share my screen so that you can be able to see what has so far been added. So you're looking at what are your thoughts on GMOs. So far we have someone who has said scary. We also have another person who has said suspicious. So kindly just add your thoughts on GMOs. What are your thoughts on GMOs? Then you're also free to add more than one entry. So even if you've already added, you are still free to add another entry. So what are your thoughts on GMOs? We have someone who has said it's scary. We have unfriendly to humans. We have loss of originality and sustainability. Kindly add your thoughts. At the same time, if you're not able to click on the link that we've shared on the chat, on your mobile browser, just go to menti.com. Then when you ask for a code, you'll input 50784247. Then you can be able to add your inputs. I've again shared the link on the chat. What are your thoughts on genetically modified organisms, GMOs? We have unfriendly to humans. We have exploring opportunities. We have suspicious. We have loss of originality, scary, not sure. Kindly add your thoughts on what you feel about GMOs. Unhealthy, false solution, dependency, exploring opportunities. We have more food, safety and sanity, safety, loss of originality. We also have technology advancement. We have unhealthy. There's more food. We also have changes tests, development in science, and non-traditional. we have technology advancements, loss of originality. So you are still free to add your input. You are still free to add your input on what your thoughts on GMOs. So back to you, Rosina.
Thank you, Bob, for that session, and I think we can continue sharing our thoughts about GMOs. Now, participants, I want to take this opportunity to welcome today's speaker, Anne Maina, who will be dialoguing with us on the changing landscape of GMOs in Kenya, should we be concerned. Anne is a development practitioner who has been actively working on challenging force solutions being pushed in Africa, like genetic engineering, the push for a green revolution in Africa, and carbon markets as a strategy to cope with climate change in Africa. She has been very instrumental in the growth and development of networks such as the Eastern and Southern Africa Small-Scale Farmers Forum, that is ESAF, Participatory Ecological Land Use Management, PELAM Association, and the Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa, AFSA. Anne is the National Coordinator of Biodiversity and Biosafety Association of Kenya, commonly known as BIBA, and previously has been called KBioC. So I take this opportunity to warmly welcome Anne. Anne, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rosina, for the beautiful introduction. I'm going to start off now. I want to share my screen, just a minute. I'm struggling a bit to share the screen. Maybe Catherine or Bob, you can support me to share the screen.
You can try sharing now.
I try sharing now.
Yes.
Just a minute. Bob, can you be able to share my screen? Okay, I think I've managed it. Thank you very much, everyone, for giving me the opportunity to come in. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
We can see. You can go on presentation mode.
Okay.
Yes. Great.
Thank you very much. As introduced, I'm sorry for that. I'll begin by a short definition on what GMOs are. Quite often you get people asking you what GMOs are. These are living organisms whose genetic material has been artificially manipulated in the laboratory. We also have them being called the living modified organisms. Kenya, being a signatory of the Cartagena Protocol and also the Convention on Biological Diversity, these are international legal instruments that are governing issues related to genetically modified organisms. And we also have our biosafety law, which was passed in 2009. The laws are all designed to protect both biological diversity and human lives from adverse effects of the genetically modified organisms. Just a brief, at the national level, we have the Constitution of Kenya, which protects Kenyans. We also have the Biosafety Act and several regulations under the Biosafety Act, including the contained use regulations, the environmental release regulations, import, export, and transit regulations, and the labeling regulations. At the international level, we have the Convention on Biological Diversity, the Cartagena Protocol, and several principles like the principle of precaution, liability and redress, and access and benefit sharing. A brief on how the GMO situation has been in Kenya. Most of you have heard there's a ban on GMOs, which was instituted in 2012 through a cabinet decision and a presidential decree in line with our MCA Act 2015 and our biosafety laws, and of course, enshrined in the Kenyan Constitution 2010. However, there was another cabinet decision that was made on the 20th of December 2019 to commercialize BT cotton in Kenya. And right now, BT cotton is commercialized in the country. In 2020 also, we saw that there was a move towards now even giving free seed to farmers for BT cotton. These were distributed in Busia and subsequently other areas like Makueni, Lamu, where there's growth of cotton. Then Kenya has become also the first country to commercialize or approve for national performance trials of genetically modified cassava, mostly to cope with the challenges of cassava bounce streak disease prevalent in East Africa. When you look at also the current situation, there are several trials that are ongoing. We have 34 laboratory or greenhouse projects, 14 confined field trials, 20. This is quite important because sometimes we have seen cases where goods that are meant to be exported or transiting the country ending up in the local market. We have the national performance trials for MON 810. These are ongoing, and the National Biosafety Authority have indicated that by 2022, they should be able to commercialize that. We also have the water efficient maize, now Teller maize, that's ongoing at Karikiboko, virus resistant cassava, and all this including sorghum, banana, and pigeon peas. Now, how is the spread of genetically modified foods the world over? You can see from this map that was produced by Clive James in 2015, and looking at a 2013 map for Africa, the main countries that have commercialized GMOs include Egypt, Sudan, Burkina Faso, South Africa, and now Kenya has joined that league as beginning to commercialize. We also have trials that are ongoing, confined feed trials in countries that have biosafety laws and all that. But what are some of the issues that we have raised regarding GMOs? When GMOs were introduced, the talk was that they are resistant to climate change. But over the years, we have seen from 1996 is when the first GMOs were planted in the US. But with time, you realize they are not really drought tolerant. They need as much water as other crops. In terms of yield productivity, studies have been done and to show that the crop yield is not as much as, or rather does not really increase much as opposed to agroecological practices, organic agriculture. Then increased amount of vitamin in food. There was talk of biofortification and like what we have golden rice in Asia, that was said to include vitamin A. But later studies showed that a child in an undeveloped country would have to eat about 27 to 54 bowls of rice a day to get the recommended daily allowance of vitamin A. Yet they could eat one carrot and that would be enough for a day. Then in terms of resistance, we've seen that these crops now depend so much on more toxic pesticides because of development of superbugs and super weeds. Generally, the money is the biggest driver of GMOs because the multinationals that promote them are after the profits and control of patents and breeder rights nationally and internationally. But what do GMO scientists tell us? if you look at this diagram, GMO scientists have for many years promoted what they call GMOs. But when you look at classic breeding, the talk is that it's slow, it's imprecise. The modification of genes occurs naturally, which is slow. But GMOs, they have said, is different. Is you can use different species, insert the desired species, and now we have gone to what you're calling genome editing, which is a group of technologies that give scientists the ability to make minute changes in the DNA. But what are our concerns about it, these current GMOs? So responsible scientists promote classical breeding because it's natural. The egg and the sperm come from the same species. GMOs have for a long time, people have argued that this crossing of the species barrier is a bit of an issue. Then it deals with the whole organism and not just genes. In traditional breeding, genes come together on their own after fertilization. However, with genetic engineering, the genes from they cross the species barrier, and there is a use, for example, of either bacteria or gene gun to introduce cells. If there are those cell tissues that grow that were not meant to be there, they are killed off by antibiotics. But the precision of this is quite questionable. And now there's what we are calling gene editing. This is a more advanced level where genetic scissors are used to introduce genes from different species. And the precision, again, is a bit questionable because what would be the effect? And maybe to give an example, if you look, for example, of children born with Down syndrome, it's only one gene that changes in the whole system. And so those are some of the issues that we have raised over time regarding GMOs. But are GMOs useful? Yeah, okay, we can say the red GMO, which is involves issues of development of medicine. Right now we have coronavirus, and some of the vaccines are actually developed from GMO. We also look at issues related to insulin. There are two types of insulin that may be used in the management of diabetes. There can be animal-sourced insulin and synthetic or GMO insulin. And of course, you have also things like gene therapy for children born with sickle cell anemia. But again, we call for caution because the GM bacteria, though cheaper to produce insulin than the controversial one, because previously what would happen is that the insulin would be extracted, for example, dead pigs or cows, and used to inject the people suffering from diabetes. But the ethics issues were raised because maybe if you're Muslim and you're not sure where this insulin is coming from. So the GM bacteria that has been used to develop insulin has made it more accessible and cheaper and suitable for people, for example, who don't eat pork. But still questions of ethics remain. Are they beneficial to the environment? We have been speaking on issues of toxic pesticides. You find that GMOs, just like hybrids, require more water and more fertilizer. They need a lot of nutrients, which deplete the soil from nutrients, and require much more use of pesticides, insecticides, which often run off to our water tables, becoming a major challenge. I've given an example here of an area in the US called Yakima Valley. And there are 3 rivers that cross this Yakima Valley. And in the 1980s, there was notice of toxic weed in this river, just like maybe you see at the Lake Victoria, the water hyacinth. And so Monsanto recommended the use of glyphosate. The local name there is rodeo, just like in Kenya, you'll have local names for glyphosate-based chemicals. So they recommended that this rodeo glyphosate should be used to control the toxic weed. After some time, the doctors in the area realized that children are being born with challenges, with the neurodevelopment challenges. You can see this child, and it was increasing from the 80s. It kept on increasing, and they raised queries related to this. This, unfortunately, is not widely shared But you can see the challenges related to the use of these genetically modified foods. But we find glyphosate is in our almost all our daily meals, because what is happening like in the Mau Narok area, areas where there's growth of wheat plantations, what the farmers use, they spray glyphosate just before harvest, quickly desiccate the wheat or the maize. I was even shocked to find out the other day, even onions. They desiccate them, harvest, and plant something else in the name of agribusiness. So because they're not drying uniformly, just quickly dry them off. And so you find a glyphosate ending up in our local foods, in our milk, even in our potatoes. Farmers are using the glyphosate. Even for those who enjoy their drink, there's those remnants. Then you find also that GM herbicide tolerant crops are engineered to survive being sprayed with herbicide, mostly glyphosate-based herbicides like Roundup. And all plants beside the herbicide crops are supposed to die. So you plant in a row your maize, and when they grow, you spray, everything else will die except your crop. So you find that is a major issue. You ask yourself, so which is why is it this plant able to withstand that? But you find also nature finds ways and evolves. So the pests and weeds that these herbicides were supposed to kill to become resistant to the toxins develop over time. So you find farmers now having more super bugs, super weeds, and they either apply more, but you see like tomato farmers, what they're doing, they're even going for triatics, which is used to spray ticks in animals to control the tuta absoluta. So companies are also forced to produce much more stronger chemicals, and we can see those challenges. About Bacillus thuringiensis, or BT, which we are finding in the BT maize being promoted, BT cotton. Natural Bacillus thuringiensis toxin is derived from common soil bacterium. Scientists will tell you, oh, BT is common in the soil, but the natural BT is safe for use. You can use it even in organic farming. Once applied on the plant, it eventually degrades. But when you have the genetically engineered BT toxins, the crops are permanently switched on all the time. And they have been shown to harm non-targets or pollinators like butterflies and bees and all those. And this is a major challenge because we are losing a lot of these pollinators, which are really important in terms of pollinating. BT toxins are also not destroyed by cooking or by the digestive process. So they end up in the intestines and killing the friendly bacteria found in our bodies. The pro-GM proponents claim that GMOs crops can deliver healthy and more nutritious foods. But that's not, we say that, okay, for our part, from the work that we have been doing, you find that the commercial crops there are a lot of trials going on. I talked about golden rice, sorghum, and bananas in Uganda and Kenya. And these crops are not more nutritious. Actually, some of them have proven to be less nutritious due to unintended consequences of genetic manipulation. And so even the Food and Drugs Authority in the US are calling on some of these products not to be promoted. If you look at, for example, the health effects, and this is a study that was done in Australia, where pigs were fed on GM crops, soya and maize. And after some time, here you find on the left, normal intestines, but on the right, there was inflammation. And you and I know inflammation is a sign of disease, or disease even coming. And so the differences in the nutritional content and the allergic responses showed their side effects related to the consumption of GMOs, because the stomach of the pig is almost similar to the human being. We also have the BT cotton, which has been promoted as something that will make changes and bring changes to rural Kenya. But like other industrial crops and crops that are grown in monocultures, this is not the case. If you look at Burkina Faso, Makatini, and India, poverty and suicides in India have become a thing because of the burden of loans, because you'll buy the BT cotton seed. We wrote an article some like 2 years ago, and we were comparing in Burkina Faso, where I had the opportunity to visit. And when they were growing, the difference between the conventional seed of cotton and the BT cotton was almost 38 times more expensive. But also the things that are related to that, when you grow the BT cotton, you have to buy the pesticides, you have to buy the fertilizers. There are now secondary pests that have come up, which are causing more challenges in terms of using more toxic pesticides. And this can be like, we might see like it becoming like the sugar industry problems. If you look at Tanzania, where they produce 3% of the world's organic cotton, almost a lot of it is exported, but the price given is almost 10 times that of conventional cotton. So that's realization. But what are some of the alternatives, or what as BIBA, Biodiversity and Biosafety Association of Kenya, and our allies, we promote agroecology because agroecology combines local farmers' knowledge with the most recent scientific knowledge. And this helps in terms of improving farming technologies and practices. If you remember, we are asking what are some of the issues that we have related to GMOs. And agroecology as a food systems is at the heart and combines modern science and innovation with nature and biodiversity. Small-scale farmers are able to practice this form of agriculture, building on their traditional knowledge and local land acres. Then agroecology, as defined by FAO, is a science, but also a movement or practice, which is concerned with farming methods that are based on local peasant or smallholder farmers, local inputs, using integrated pest management and other practices to ensure that the soil, we build the soil as we grow food, and it's diverse with low external inputs. And we also promote the use of farmer-managed seed systems, because GMOs also are a threat to our farmer-managed seed systems, because when you start using the GMO, for example, the BT maize, and you have this cross-pollination with our local varieties, we may lose our local gene pool, which is very important for farmers in terms of climate resilience. And the promotion of the open pollinated varieties, or what are called farmer-managed seed systems, are different because they have been bred over generations through selection and swapping. They're stable and robust, and farmers are able to interact with them. They have seeds for different seasons, for you give to your daughter if she's getting married, seeds that you use for different periods and different activities, even in the community. And so I welcome discussions on this. This is a dialogue where we are asking ourselves where we are at, and how we are going to, what are the concerns that we have with GMOs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anne, for a very powerful presentation. We really appreciate that very insightful presentation. We have learned a lot. I want to remind each and every one of us to continue posting your comments in the chat box. I want now to open the floor to some questions and feedbacks sessions, so that we can ask Anne some questions that we may be curious to know. So I'll open the floor to about 2 to 3 questions due to time, but all the questions you can tap them in the comments, and we can even be able to respond to them later. So if you have a question, by a show, you can raise your hand, or you can also write on the chat box, and we'll request Anne to respond to them shortly. Yes, I can see Mane and Gaylord. So we'll have Mane and then Gaylord.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Anne, for the presentation, which I was really interested in so many things on it. And it's so interesting to learn. I've never known that there are other uses of GMO important uses, especially for the medicine, the insulin. So I think I've learned something new there. And but at the same time, the good supersedes the bad things of GMO. So we are still against GMO. But I think as a point of information, it's also good to know that there are very important uses of GMO. So thank you so much for your presentation. And I think I've learned a lot today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mane. Gaylord, please. Gaylord. Okay, Rose, we can hear from Rose Kamau. Gaylord.
Yes, thank you very much
Word
for
is
your
hand.
presentation.
Hand is up. Please have the floor.
Thank you, thank you.
Not able to.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Mane. This is Rose Kamau talking. I hope everybody can hear me. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
we can hear you. But the
Okay,
presentation was made by Anne Maina, not Mane.
Oh, Anne, okay. So thank you very much for that presentation. Now, I want, in one of the slides, you said about the glyphosate being found in the food stuff, that is the plant and the animal alike. But now my question is the data available or present to quantify the amount of glyphosate found in plant products and also found in animal products? And as it goes above the food chain, is it now increasing the glyphosate level or is it decreasing? Like now, do you find more glyphosate like in meat product and milk as compared to the plant product?
Okay, thank you. We will take the last question from David Obiero. Please, David.
Thank you very much, Madam Rosina and Anne. I have just one question to ask concerning the issue of the GMOs. What are the strategies the BIBA and the Pelham Kenya has put in place to make sure that all the seeds that the farmers are receiving in Kenya that they used to plant are GMO free, so that they can not really have that burden of buying a lot of fertilizers and a lot of pesticides to make sure that they have high yield at the end of the season? Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Let's take the final one from Daphne Mushai. Then from there, we shall hear from Anne. Daphne Mushai, that's the final one.
Yeah, thank you, Rosina. And Anne, thank you so much. That was very insightful because it's scientifically proven. And this is something, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. I represent the Women Farmers Association of Kenya, and personally, I have been wondering, now that we have so much data and so much proven issues that we can take to the government and to those people who are signing off that we import or we take these trials to the farmers, and then of course, if the trials are being done out there, because most of the trials are, even if they're in the research centers, our farmers, maybe the final trials will be done in farmers' farms. This means that some of these things have penetrated our food chain. And if glyphosate is being used in wheat and maize and tomatoes, oh my God, then what does that mean? How do we now influence the government with such information that they don't go full blast into accepting this GMO, either in form of the pesticides or in form of seeds? How do we go forward? And have we done it? Because maybe BIBA could have done it, or another organization? Thank you.
Thank you. Before I close, I can see my co-host Catherine is raising a hand. Catherine, you have something to mention?
Yes, thanks, Rosina. Mine is actually, it relates to what Daphne has just talked about. More of it's like a question or just food for thought in terms of the impact of the GMOs on biodiversity. And when we introduce different, say, crops, or even, the livestock and the other interesting areas that Anne has presented, it would also be great to see the link to biodiversity and also the environment at large. Thanks.
Thank you. I think we will just keep taking the questions from the chat now, and I want to quickly read them through as Anne is coming up to answer them. I can see from Alpha Slow Food, GMOs, the solution to food insecurity in Kenya. I can see another question from Rebecca Tanui. There is a serious concern of glyphosate to dry crops. Is the ministry aware of this? James Mutiso, thanks for the presentation. Can I access a copy of the presentations? Rebecca, again, what should we do to stop the use of glyphosate by farmers? Kashora Aweru, do we have labs dedicated to research in the quantities and extent of toxins via GMO experiments? How can we help farmers to get better natural weeds besides the GMOs? I think now I want to invite Anne to just respond to the questions. And then the last question is, how do we take these facts on GMOs and its effects to the farmers? Keep them coming. I think Anne will be able to respond to as many as possible. Anne, please.
Thank you very much, Rosina, and everyone for the quite good comments and the questions. Rose Kamau asked if there's data available about issues related to glyphosate in the food chain. Like I was saying, like the way farmers in Mount Narok and other areas are using glyphosate to dry. Maybe to mention that BIBA Kenya, Biodiversity and Biosafety Association of Kenya, and the Route to Food Initiative, and Resources-Oriented and Development Initiatives, and Kenya Organic Agriculture Network, in 2019, we submitted a petition to Parliament through Honorable Gladys Boshole, calling for the withdrawal of toxic pesticides in Kenya. Subsequently, in 2020, the Committee on Health, led by Honorable Sabina Chege, submitted its proposals and conclusions, and called for the withdrawal of the toxic pesticides that are especially cancerous, causing challenges with endocrine disruption and hormonal. What you need to note, for example, glyphosate has been categorized by the World Health Organization as a possible carcinogen. In fact, at first, the World Health Organization had said it's a carcinogen, but the people who produce these chemicals are really super rich, the multinationals, and they pushed and they said, you cannot do that. And so you're finding these big challenges. But what really has shocked us as working on the grassroots, BIBA is a membership organization with over 60 members all over the country, from FBOs to CBOs. And that's when we moved to the field and we were in Emali, Loitoktok, and we were very shocked when we shared about the challenges related to glyphosate. And the farmers were saying that, we even dried the tomatoes with glyphosate. You're talking of maize and wheat. We dry, and when we dry, for example, the maize, the straw is cut and is fed on the cattle. But the interesting question that you have raised about being able to track the food chain, how the impact of that glyphosate, that we have not done locally in Kenya, but studies done in France have shown that glyphosate has been found 30 years after use in the local wells. In France also, they tested women by giving them food that had been grown, GMO food that had been grown with the use of glyphosate. And what was interesting, these pregnant women, they wanted to see if by giving birth to the baby, if the baby had traces of the BT and the chemicals. And when they tested, they actually found it. So in terms of how high in the food chain you can track it, and the impact, I cannot answer that. But you remember I shared the slide on the stomach lining. Those pigs were fed, and the stomach pig is almost similar to a human pig, and they were fed on GM soya and BT maize. And you could see those that were given conventional and those were given GMO, there was stomach inflammation. And so that should be able to show the impact of the BT. If you're getting, for example, the glyphosate in water 30 years later, and one scientist was saying that you see a tablespoon of glyphosate put on a plate and used on an acre of land, that one you find it 30 years later. Because what happens with glyphosate is also a mineral chelator. By saying that's a mineral chelator, when you use glyphosate and there are other minerals present in the soil, yes, the soil testing will show you have the zinc, you have all the minerals in the soil. But what glyphosate that does, it picks that mineral and releases and does not release it to the plant. And that's, you find those challenges in terms of nutrition. And you have to realize that twin nature of glyphosate and that other toxic pesticides and GMOs, because GMOs have been developed, like BT maize, for example, it has been developed with a plan for more use of fertilizers, more use of pesticides, because the company that sells you the seed also sells you the fertilizer, also sells you the pesticide. And so that is part of the reason why they are profiting from that line. Then there was the question on the strategies that we are using to ensure farmers use GMO-free seeds. We as Biba Kenya and Pelham and other partners that we are working with, we have been promoting the use of agroecological practices. Organic practices. Agroecology is much more broader than organic, where farmers have been trained on how to practice integrated pest management, how to use their local seeds, because smallholder farmers in Africa feeds almost 70% of the population. They have been breeders for thousands of years or hundreds of years, but they are not recognized even in our local laws and policies. For example, the seed laws in Kenya do not consider farmers a breeder. Kenya is a signatory of the UPOP 1991 law, which does not give that recognition. But if you look at a country like Uganda or Tanzania, they have some small provisions where farmers have plant breeders' rights. But in Kenya, it's all about promotion of multinationals that are selling those seeds. And so part of our campaign is also looking at seed issues, but also farmers are trained on how to do organic farming practices, use local integrated pest management practices, and hopefully have some areas where we have GMO-free zones. And when you look, for example, at maize, there's a point I'd forgotten. Why we have fought viciously not to have maize commercialized in Kenya is because maize is a staple in Kenya. We take it in the uji or ugali for breakfast, lunch, githeri. In the evening, you can eat even ugali is a staple. You cannot compare that with the US, who began growing GMOs in 1996, because their maize, even if they're eating using, for example, cornflakes, it's not a staple. But ask yourself, why are we so keen to promote BT maize, yet wheat has never been genetically modified? So it's about control, it's about markets in Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa, where there's a lot of consumption of maize. Then Daphne was asking about how the government is tackling this. Again, in 2019, as the Biodiversity and Biosafety Association of Kenya, we approached the Senate Committee on Agriculture, calling for the withdrawal of glyphosate in the local market. After that, we were even called for a session where Ministry of Agriculture came, Ministry of Health, and Ministry of Health issued a statement, which I can share later, which was very clear, where they said they do not advocate for the use of glyphosate. That's work that's ongoing, calling for the withdrawal of glyphosate from the Kenyan market, and also other toxic pesticides. Maybe to mention that we, after the the petition for the withdrawal of toxic pesticides and the recommendation by the Parliamentary Health Committee on withdrawal of all pesticides that have been linked to cancer, endocrine dysfunction, and all that, we have gone forward and engaged local scientists from various universities, University of Nairobi, and we are going to share on the chat. My colleague Lynn will share the report that we have recently produced, which shows, and some of these scientists and doctors work, for example, at Kenyatta, and they have seen that link about use of the toxic pesticides and a lot of the challenges, the increasing cases of cancer. Yes, it's a good, from Catherine, looking at GMOs and the impact on biodiversity. A lot of research work is important to look at that, but we talked about the pollinators and the challenges related with the extensive use of glyphosate and the glyphosate and other toxic pesticides. Are GMOs the solution to food insecurity in Kenya? No, food insecurity is not about, food insecurity is about issues of access, and access means affordability. If today, like now, we're having the challenge with drought in the country, the people who cannot be able to buy food are the people in the drought-stricken areas because they don't have access to money. It's about access, affordability, availability. Some areas in the country have had a good harvest, but the food is not reaching those poor people, for example, in Turkana, where there are challenges with food. And so even when you look at other countries, not only Kenya, there's a lot of wastage that goes on, food wastage, post-harvest losses, and that is one of the major challenges related to issues of food insecurity. So GMOs are not. The issue of laboratory research, I think that's an area that we welcome, and we are looking at areas to work with researchers to look at the impact of GMOs in our food system, the impact on biodiversity, and all that. I don't know if, Rosina, I missed a question. I haven't been able to look at.
Yeah, I think you have. Yeah, thank you, Anne. I think you have been able to answer most of the questions, and I encourage that these people can also reach out to Anne and be able to get more insights about the issues of GMOs. I can see the questions have been trickling in, but due to time, we may not be able to answer all of them. Yeah, so I think thank you very much, Anne, for attempting all the questions that we had. And please keep also tweeting on our hashtag. And now we are almost coming to the end of our conversation today. I want to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of us who has been able to participate. This conversation shall be uploaded in the ISFA YouTube channel, that is ISFA for Agroecology and Agrobiodiversity, and Facebook page, that is ISFA KE, and I encourage everyone to continue dialoguing there. I want now to invite Bob Aston. Bob, are you there? Please, the floor is yours.
So I'll share a question on the chat. So after today's discussion, you can check on the link that I've shared in the chat. Are you ready to start consuming GMO products? I'll also share my screen. So there's a question that you've asked on the chat. Are you ready to start consuming GMO products? You can either respond with yes, no, or you can respond with yes, no, or in case you're not sure. So are you ready to start consuming GMO products? There's a link that we've shared on the chat. Just click on the link. But if you're not able to use the link, you can also just go to, on your browser, you go to menti.com. Then when you're asked for a code, just input 50784247. So are you ready to start consuming GMO products? 10 people have indicated no. 2 have said 2 are not sure. And 1 person has said yes. So those who have not yet tried, just add your input. Are you ready to start consuming GMO products? So 10 have said yes, 17 have said no, 3 have said they're not sure, and 1 person has said yes. Let me again share the link in case you've not received the link. So are you ready to start consuming GMO products? So let's just go to the next question after that. For those who have said yes, or even for those who have indicated no, so kindly share your concern. Just click on the same link. Now, what are your concerns on GMO? In case you had said yes or no, or maybe you had indicated you're not sure, kindly share your concern. So it's supposed to, the link that you clicked on is supposed to update automatically. However, I can still share the link on the chat. So I can see also in the chat, David Obiero has said no. Francis Nyambariga has said not sure. There's Mary who has said not if I have a choice. Sabrina, no, we have to have choices because most of the products we use contain GMO. So you can just click on the link that you shared on the chat. So we can see someone has said the safety aspect. From Dr. Mental, we have long-term health not known, healthy and safety of people and ecosystems. Some food are unhealthy to be consumed since some lack the required nutrients. We also have, we still do not know their long-term impacts on humans. Safety of the GMOs with regards to lung health, their safety in human health, environment, and future possibilities. We are not sure of the long-term effects in our systems. GMOs are not safe for human. So kindly just add your thoughts or your concern. Let me again share the link. So I've again share the link on the chat. So majority can say, we can see I've said safety concerns, safety of the GMOs with regards to human health, their safety in human health, environment, and future possibilities. We still do not know their long-term impacts on human, then also healthy and safety of people and ecosystems. So at least we've received response from around 30 people. So back to you, Rosina, in case there are some questions that were not answered. I think we still have around 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bob. And I think we can take one more question and just the final remarks from the presenter. I don't know who wants to, anyone who would like to give very quick or a very pressing question. I've seen several questions on the chat, which have been typed. Maybe Anne, because you have been able to see them, you can just have this opportunity to just give other comments regarding the questions that have been coming, especially on the chat box. Just final remarks around that. Anne?
Thank you, Rosina. Maybe let me look at some of those questions that have been coming. Most people have been trying to find out whether, let me see. About the seeds that in the market. Maybe just to say that the seeds in the market legally, all seeds that might be GMO legally is only BT cotton or the cuttings for the cassava. But as far back as 2008, as Biodiversity and Biosafety Association of Kenya, we did some research and bought some seed in Eldoret, which was marked a product of South Africa. And when we tested that locally and took it to Germany for more tests, and found out that as far back as 2008, they were contaminated with a GMO, which was a real concern. Not over 5 years ago, there was the issue of Aromat, which actually it's an MP who picked it up and it was clearly marked it as GMO. And this is an issue of concern because I talked about like transit, the regulations on transit. And so you find there's also cases of contamination. Even when you look at relief food, when relief food is brought in, there have been some provisions where it can come in as GMOs. And what we have pushed, like Zambia some years back when there was drought, President Levi Mwanawasa said that you have to bring in the maize milled, because what happens, the farmer will get this, for example, GM maize from the US, eat a little and save some for planting. And that causes challenges because it will contaminate the GM genetic pool. And so calling on members here, especially related to GMO maize, we need to campaign hard, and the National Biosafety Authority usually calls for comments when there is an application. We as BIBA Kenya have always given our comments and our concerns about GMOs. And so it's important as citizens of Kenya, we continue to be very vocal and share those concerns that Kenya is not ready for GMOs, especially BT maize, because that's a staple food that we eat every day, and we cannot afford to eat that. Maybe in the US it's fed on livestock and animals, but in Kenya it's a staple crop. And with the current COVID challenges, we do not want to promote the use of restricted crops, or rather just one crop. We want diversity and promotion also of local varieties, millets, sorghums, and all those for nutritional security. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anne. And I think now we are coming to the end of our session. Once more, thank you everyone for your time and for the fruitful contributions that you have made, and particularly Anne, also for sharing this very important issue of the GMOs. And it has come timely when at the same time as a country, we have the ban, which was put in 2012. And at the same time as Kenya, we are still trying and putting some of the GMOs out there. So it's a very interesting scenario of the law versus the action. So I thank you everyone, and I hope to see you back in the 2 weeks time for the next ISFA dialogue that will be held on the 13th of October at 2:30 p.m. East Africa time. Keep registering and joining for these dialogues so that we can all learn together and continue putting the issue of agroecology and agrobiodiversity to the heart of the country. So goodbye and God bless you, each one of us. Bye-bye.
Then Rosine, as we leave, we'd like to play the video that we wanted to play when you started. So as people are leaving, hopefully you can also be able to listen as we play the video that we had initially intended to play.
Thank you. Yes, just put it up, then after that, people can leave at their own pleasure. From my end, bye-bye.
In the past, farming was as simple as this. The farmer replanted and harvested according to the natural cycle. However, recently, things got a bit more complicated. Big machines and chemicals made their way into the fields, and intensive farming was born. Production boomed, but at the expense of nature. Farming became an environmentally damaging activity. It also became very lucrative for agrochemical companies who produce pesticides. Profits overtook the public interest. Seeking to constantly expand their bottom line, agrochemical companies began to play with GMOs, genetically modified organisms. But what is a GMO? It's an organism which has had an external gene artificially inserted to give it new properties. For example, corn. Here's the DNA that will be modified. Then you find the organism containing the new gene to be introduced. Animals, plants, bacteria, the spectrum of living organisms is wide. Not this one, not this one. Ah, this bacteria is just the one. We isolate the gene. We introduce the DNA into the corn and there we go. This is called transgenetifying. With transgenetifying, the natural cycle is short-circuited. For thousands of years, seeds were produced naturally by plants. Now they're produced in laboratories. Today, there are two types of GMO made, those that produce their own pesticides and those that resist certain herbicides. But as a result of being exposed to them, weeds and insects develop a resistance to these products. They mutate. In order to get rid of them, you have to use higher doses of chemical products or different pesticides. On top of this, there's the risk of genetic contamination. Through unintended crossbreeding, GMO genes can modify the genetic code of other organisms. And that's not to mention the fact that there's no reliable study on the long-term impacts of GMOs on health.
GM stands for genetically modified. So GM crops are plants grown for food whose genes have been altered using genetic engineering. In some cases, crops that are most commonly modified are cotton, soybean, maize, and canola.